What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, as the host of Locked On Rockets, we'll be discussing Jabari Smith Jr. and his standout performance against the San Antonio Spurs. The Rockets blowing out the Spurs in their first preseason game. What was different for Jabari Smith Jr. this time around compared to Summer League, as he hit not one, not two, not three, not four, but five triples against the Spurs, plus his front court mate, Tari Eason, also going off 21 points scored on the way to a double-double performance. How was Tari Eason able to continue his impressive stretch of play, continuing the play that he had in Vegas Summer League? We're going to talk about that in just a moment after a quick message from our friends over at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. It is so easy to create a job posting on LinkedIn Jobs. Then all you do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Joining us now as the host of Locked On Rockets, myself, Jackson Gatlin. You can follow on Twitter at JT Gatlin to talk about the Rockets pummeling the San Antonio Spurs in preseason. Final score 134-96. We'll talk about the standouts from this game. And first on the menu, what stood out about Jabari Smith Jr.'s play on the way to his 21 points on 5 of 8 shooting? Look, Jabari Smith Jr., the guy who was, highly touted as the consensus #1 overall pick leading into the NBA draft for a majority of the pre-draft cycle, and then at the very last minute falling all the way to pick #3 and landing in Houston. There were expectations for him in Summer League, right, to maybe kind of go out and prove some of the doubters wrong, prove the Orlando Magic wrong, the OKC Thunder for passing him, all of this stuff. And he stood out defensively, and I think he showcased that he was going to be a much better defensive prospect than initially thought. But offensively, left a little bit to be desired, right? Didn't quite have that breakout offensive performance that we were waiting to see. And unfortunately for him, his skill set isn't one that really is able to thrive in Summer League, right? Summer League is almost a bit of a pickup style. Guys are taking their turn, your turn, my turn, isolation. Guards really tend to thrive a lot in Summer League. Guys who have the ability, a lot of self-creation ability, tend to thrive a lot. And so there was a bit of that pause for concern where suddenly people were like, oh, well, if he's not hitting shots, what else is he doing offensively? And so that was unfortunate, but he also wasn't necessarily in the best position to thrive because he didn't have a ton of great creators on that Houston Rockets Summer League team. Whereas in this game, against the San Antonio Spurs, on the way to the Rockets' 30-plus point blowout of the Spurs, Jabari Smith Jr., 21 points on 8 of 15 shooting, shot 5 of 8 from behind the three-point line, also grabbed 8 rebounds, 2 assists. This was the ideal performance from Jabari Smith Jr. because you could see just how easily he is able to feast off of his teammates and opportunities created by his teammates. But not only that, opportunities that he created himself. Now, of his 5 3-pointers, he had one of those that he just dribbled into, basically like a heat check 3-pointer, walked the ball up, and with all the utmost confidence in the world, drained it from the behind the arc. So if he's able to do that consistently and look fluid on the floor with the ball in his hands, creating his own shot, the league needs to watch out. But he also was able to thrive off opportunities created by his teammates. Jalen Green facilitated one of those three-pointers in transition. Kevin Porter Jr. whipped a pass from across the court to Jabari Smith Jr. in the corner, a pass that nobody should realistically be able to make, but Jabari Smith Jr. spoke post-game about it and said that he and KPJ made eye contact, and KPJ saw him there in the corner, and boom, one-handed pass across the court. Jabari Smith Jr. elevates, drills the three. Eric Gordon was able to facilitate a couple of those three-pointers for Jabari Smith Jr. So having the ability to rely on some of his teammates that are able to create at a high level is important for him and for his game, because that's where he's able to thrive. He is a premier, or going to be a premier catch and shoot three-point shooter at the NBA level. And this was just a brief glimpse into that. So anybody who had worries about Jabari Smith Jr.'s game after 4-5 summer league games, you can't, right? You got to take summer league with a bit of a grain of salt, and you've got to take this preseason game with a bit of a grain of salt. But hey, the three-point shot looked pure, it looked good, and I'd say it's probably a safe bet to bank on that shot looking better most nights than it will look bad most nights moving forward if you're the Houston Rockets. Now, the other guy who stood out during this Houston Rockets preseason game was none other than Tari Eason, fellow Houston Rockets rookie, drafted 17th overall. Tari looked incredible in this game. Off the bench, he finished with 21 points, 10 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals. He had a block, just 1 turnover, 9 of 13 shooting, 1 of 2 from behind the three-point line. Tari Eason was a menace, and the Spurs had absolutely zero answer for him. So not only was he a disruptive force defensively in tandem with Jabari Smith Jr., we'll talk about the Rockets defense in a second, but offensively, he just put his head down and got to the rim, and there was nobody on the Spurs team that could stop him. Now, there was a bit of a concern coming out of the draft, right, that maybe at times Tari could be a bit tunnel visioned, working to get to his spots, driving the ball in, that kind of thing, especially maybe in transition. But I haven't seen any of those pre-draft concerns through summer league games, now through one preseason game, through training camp. Tari's basketball IQ looks to be incredibly solid. His ability to get to his spots, his ability to drive the ball in and also kick the ball back out, right? If he drives it in and there's nothing there for him, he's able to make those reads and just be like, all right, well, there's 3 guys stacked up here in the paint against me. Let me kick it back out to the correct open man to generate a wide open shot. Which is impressive, but his ability to finish when he does get to the rim, again, 9 of 13 shooting on the interior. He was 9 of 11 in the paint against the Spurs. He didn't take any mid-range shots. That's not his game. He either drives it into the hole or he shoots from beyond the arc. That's his game. It was impressive to see him continue his display. He was selected to the All-NBA Summer League team, and for good reason. He had an impressive Summer League. It was great to see him kind of continue that display, that performance against the San Antonio Spurs. Again, on the way to an absolute blowout against the Spurs. And you do have to say, right, what's the difference about this Rockets year's team versus last year's team? Rockets were the worst team in the NBA 2 seasons in a row. They could potentially be passing that mantle to the San Antonio Spurs, right? The Spurs tore it down. They are completely rebuilding now. So maybe you take it with a grain of salt, this game, the blowout. The Rockets aren't going to be coming out blowing out teams every other night. That's not how this is going to work whatsoever. But what they are going to be is they are going to be a competitive team, a team that nobody else wants to play against. That's the kind of message that head coach Steven Silas sent during media day. That's the message that a lot of the players sent. They don't have any preconceived notions about, being a play-in team or fighting, for a playoff spot. No, nobody's expecting that. The expectations they have set for themselves, though, are to be a competitive team, to be the team that nobody else wants to play against. And so far through, one preseason game, through training camp, again, you've got to wait and see how this plays out against the other preseason matches that they have as we head into the early part of the regular season. Can they stick true to that statement? Can they be the team that nobody wants to play against? Right now, it does feel like they have a completely different identity than last season. And can they continue to build on that identity is the big question mark. Last thing here, Rockets backup center, kind of an afterthought in a trade last season to acquire Dennis Schroeder from the Boston Celtics, sending out veteran center Daniel Tice. Bruno Fernando was signed to an Exhibit 10 deal. It was kind of a foregone conclusion. It sounded like he was going to probably be the Rockets' secondary two-way player for much of training camp, and then out of nowhere signs a 4-year, $10 million deal that was announced just before tip-off against the San Antonio Spurs. Apparently, per a source that was reported by another Houston Rockets media member, Adam Spillane, Bruno Fernando has looked phenomenal during training camp. We got a few chime-ins while I was down in training camp covering it for the Houston Rockets, and we got a few chime-ins about Bruno, but this kind of came out of left field. The 4-year deal, and he was solid in this game for the Houston Rockets. Double check his stat line, make sure I got it. 8 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Nothing that jumps off the page, but there was one thing, right, that doesn't kind of stand out in the box score that stood out, was the fact that he was the backup center directly off the bench, so ahead in the center rotation of anybody else on the Houston Rockets roster. And then secondly, his interior defensive presence is a bit different than their starting center Alperen Şengün, in that he has an interior defensive presence. And then offensively, he gives this Houston Rockets team a bit of a different look because he's able to play above the rim. He's able to use his athleticism and really play that above the rim role. He's able to run well in transition, and that gives the Houston Rockets a different look than Alperen Şengün, who is effectively kind of almost their hub offensively, right? With so many of the actions running through him when he is on the floor, he sets so many screens, he gets the passes on the short roll, he's kind of the decision maker within the Rockets offense, kind of like a mini Jokic, if you will, within the Rockets offensive scheme. And so for Bruno Fernando to be able to just check in and be that kind of, maybe not a safety valve, but be that offensive option where he's able to roll hard to the rim, play above the rim, use his athleticism, finish hard on rolls, that kind of thing, for ball handlers like Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green, it helps out the offense a ton. And things looked really fluid when he was on the floor, in addition to when his the starting center, Alperen Şengün, was on the floor. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of navigate his role moving forward. Is he now the de facto backup center for this Houston Rockets team? Of course, I'll have you covered for all of that, as well as Jabari Smith Jr.'s continued growth and performance throughout his rookie campaign over at Locked On Rockets.